Hang on just a sec. Here we go.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. The Celtic version of the Lord's Prayer. Holy One beyond all names, eternal wellspring, may love rise again in us today, with food for every table, shelter for every family, and reverence for every life. Forgive us our failings in love and free us from all falseness, that the light of our souls may shine and the strength of our spirits endure for earth and for all its people, this day, tonight, and forever. Amen.
Oh, man. Oh, that's beautiful.
That is nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, I like that.
Hey, Katrina.
Morning, Katrina.
There we go. I had a problem finding my mic. Good morning, everybody. I have no
Good,
video today.
good morning. And now that I have Miss Katrina on here, I can share with everybody. I had an amazing reading from Miss Katrina. Yes, she did a great job. And you guys know me. I'm not going to say nothing about me because I don't want her to have no information. And you totally pegged me 150%. So hats off to you, Katrina. You did a great job.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
You're welcome. Own that stuff. You're good, you know?
Nice. Well, I just put in the chat the link to the document that we have online of the rules for being human. I don't know if Shirley wrote this or if someone else wrote it. Paula, do you know?
I
You don't
think
know.
she got it from somebody else, but I'm not a hundred
Okay.
percent sure. I got so much of her stuff. I don't know what's all.
Yeah.
I know all the ancient stuff is hers, but
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Okay. Cool. Well, it's still like a lovely little piece of wisdom. Um, Maybe I could share my screen so you guys can uh read along if you want.
Hmm.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know, should I just read it all the way through or do we want to take turns reading it or?
I can't really see it well because it's very small, but I'm great with reading if someone wants to do that. If you want to read it.
Okay, I'll just read it.
Thanks.
So, rules for being human. You will receive a body. You may like it or hate it, but it will be yours for as long as you live. How you take care of it or fail to take care of it can make an enormous difference in the quality of your life. You will learn lessons. You are enrolled in a full-time school called life. Each day you will be presented with opportunities to learn what you need to know. The lessons presented are often completely different from those you think you need. There are no mistakes, only lessons. Growth is a process of trial and error and experimentation. You can learn as much from failure as you can from success. A lesson is repeated until it is learned. A lesson will be presented to you in various forms until you have earned it. When you have learned it, as evidenced by a change in your attitude and behavior, then you can go on to the next lesson. Learning lessons does not end. There's no stage of life that does not contain some lessons. As long as you live, there will be something more to learn. There is not better than here. When your there has become a here, you will obtain another there that will again look better than your here. Don't be fooled by believing that the unattainable is better than what you have. Others are merely mirrors of you. You cannot love or hate something about another person unless it reflects something you love or hate about yourself. When tempted to criticize others, ask yourself why you feel so strongly. What you make of your life is up to you. You have all the tools and resources you need. Remember that through desire, goal setting, and unflagging effort, you can have anything you want. Persistence is the key to success. The answers lie within you. The solutions to all of life's problems lie within your grasp. All you need to do is ask, look, listen, and trust. You will forget all of this unless you consistently stay focused on the goals you have set for yourself. Everything you have just read won't mean a thing. So, thoughts about all that? Interesting little bit of wisdom.
A lot of wisdom right there.
Yeah.
That is dead on. That's the activist creed, basically. Uh, the grass is always greener on the other side, and it isn't. Uh, we always want something, but we don't know what we're looking for, and we don't take the time to figure it out. You know, you talk about somebody who wants to find the perfect mate. And you ask them what the perfect mate is, and they go, I don't know. Well, if you don't have some idea, you'll never know when you've met the perfect mate. Uh, we're never satisfied. You know, there's always something more. It's keeping up with the Joneses. And when you were reading that, I thought, that's everything I stood for all the years that I've been an activist. You have somebody telling you you're something and you know you're not. And I think a lot of it has to do with understanding yourself and being satisfied with yourself. A lot of people who want something else are not satisfied with what they've gotten, what they have within themselves. And I would hope that that is not always the case, but uh, you know, there was one thought I had, and I've had a brain fart. I'll talk to it later if I think of it. But every paragraph was meaningful in that.
Agreed. Yeah. One of the things that stuck out to me, and as a minor thing, but towards the end, um, it said you have all the tools and resources you need. And I think that's just like the only thing in here that I would flag. And in all of the, you talked about activism and all of the learning that I've done about, you know, our society and how it's structured and how some people have, more privilege and resources than other people. Um, you know, I don't want anyone to think that you can't overcome everything, that you set your mind to. I definitely think that's a good attitude to adopt, but I also when I read something like that, it's one of those things that just gives me a moment of pause to stop and think. Really, when some people are born with less resources, and it is a real challenge to overcome, and that's why great universities offer scholarships for people with less resources and things like that. And not everyone can get accepted, right? So
Mhm.
access to resources is the only thing that I think is a tiny hiccup in all of this wisdom that I saw there. And I don't know, like to point that out as
Mhm.
someone who studied about, privilege and imbalance in our society.
Right.
So I agree with everything that everyone has said. What stuck
Hmm.
out to me were the same things. So it makes me think of, the concepts as above, so below. Or for me, the idea if you don't find it within, you'll never find it without. Or the things where they say you
Right.
can take a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. I've had like downloads from my guides that have pretty much said the same thing. And I said to my girlfriend the other day, like, we all get direction for different things. And we pick up on those things in our own time. Say if you have the idea of how to make $1 million, you're asking for $1 million, but the tools to make that are scattered in front of you, but you fail to recognize it. At certain times, you pick up certain things, or sometimes we're too lazy to do stuff. I get ideas all the time that I say, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. And down the line, I'll find somebody else has found that same idea and they're making lots of money from it. Or I had an idea for it. You see what I'm getting at? Like, we do have many times the means to do things right in front of us, but we have to choose to do those things. Um, I don't know how else to, I really don't know how else to explain it. Um,
Hmm.
but it really is the idea that no one can force us to do the things that, mm, how to explain it? I really don't know how to explain it, but we all have choices. Some of
Hmm.
us do need help. And I'll say I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Hmm.
My mom worked really hard for all the things that she got. There have been many opportunities that I'm so grateful for along the
Hmm.
way. I did not do all the things that came my way. I didn't accept all the things that came my way. Sometimes I had to learn the hard way, but learning the hard way was so much
Hmm.
better for me because I got to value things more. Um, there are opportunities for people, but people don't always take advantage of them. And then sometimes people don't take advantage of them at the time because there was a lesson for them that they needed to learn, right? The way that I have gone about stuff, it could have been so much easier. But had I taken that route, I wouldn't have learned all the things that I've learned along the way. And
Right.
for me, looking back, I'll be like, oh, if I only did this, oh, if I only had that, my life would be so much easier, or would have been so much easier, but it wouldn't have been as enriched through the sadness and the pain and all the other things that I learned to appreciate to this point, to where I am now today with you guys, learning even more and about my path and how I'm growing spiritually, emotionally, um, physically, everything that combines into one to be better. And it's all because of the choices that I've made along the way. Sometimes
Hmm.
the things that I didn't have given me what I have today. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm just gonna let it rest there because I really have a hard time putting it into words, but I hope you guys get me.
No. And Katrina, if I may interject, the whole time that you were speaking, I kept on getting these two words, pay attention. I think that's really what it boils down to. You know, we need to take the time to pay attention to things that we receive sometimes. And I think because we all live such busy lives and we're constantly go, go, going, that we sometimes don't take the time to listen, you know?
Good point,
Mhm.
Cindy.
Absolutely, Cindy.
And
All
I
right.
wonder how much of it is that we don't have confidence in ourselves. We don't believe that we can actually make a difference.
Well,
Uh,
then to
with
trust ourselves.
with even yeah, and with even our limited resources we have at the time, we have to make the most of whatever is available to us. And a lot
Mhm.
of us don't have the self-confidence to go out on a limb and do something,
Mhm.
every voice matters, no
Amen to
matter
that.
no matter how feeble the voice is or how strong the voice is, they all matter.
Oh, I agree with that so much. That's what I meant when I said if you don't find it within, you won't find it without. There's a girl at my job. She's 19 going on 20. And I told her for her birthday, we were giving her advice. And I said to her, the way you treat yourself and the way that you love yourself Those are the cues that other people take on how to treat you and how to love you. And I told her, you have to love yourself fully. And you learn that your first love should be you. And once you do that, you'll never allow people to mistreat you. You'll never allow people to treat you a certain way. Your confidence is different. The way you love and feel about yourself is different. The way that you see the world is different. And that's that part of finding within, and everything radiates out, is what I said to her. That's how you choose your friendships, your business relationships. Every relationship that you have in life depends on how you are. That love that you have for yourself that radiates out to other people. It doesn't matter what type of relationship it is. And that's where your confidence comes from, and that's where it grows. And knowing yourself, that's part of that. Like you said, people don't even know what they like. You have to learn yourself. That's where your confidence comes from. And your ability to do everything else stands on what comes from within.
Really well said. Really well said. For anyone who just joined, we've posted a few times, and I'll just post it again now. The rules for being human that we're talking about. We read it out loud, and now we're just kind of discussing it. And um, also for those who just joined, we don't know if Shirley wrote this or if somebody else wrote it, but it's just some of the wisdom that Shirley shared, and I scanned into our what we're calling our spiritual library online on our drive. So yeah, you can read it on that link there if you want to catch up for a minute. But any other thoughts about the rules for being human that we're discussing, Laura?
I don't know if I heard it wrong or read it wrong, but I don't know if I believe that to if you hate someone, I hate that word, hate. I dislike that word, hate, but that's because you see something in yourself
Mhm.
that like that. I don't know if I believe that.
Well, from my experience with the gay rights movement, most of the time conservative MPs tend to try and uh, outlaw their own temptation. So they would pass laws forbidding me to do something they wanted to do. And a lot, and not every case is that, but a lot of cases, when you see any resistance, a lot of the time it comes from their own conscience and like I always express it, legislate against temptation, their own temptation.
I think it's good to think of these things like not in absolutes, like especially about, what we hate in others, we hate in ourselves. I think any of the things that we don't like that people are doing that are like immoral and stuff, we would hate in ourselves if we were doing it. That's like a way to think about it. Um, but there's like I think woven throughout this, rules for being human, it's all about the lessons. And so sometimes we're able to see something that we don't like and learn the lesson from it, but sometimes we actually do it or go there and then we realize we don't want to be there and learn the lesson that way. So I agree with you, Laura. Like
Mm,
probably not everything that, we see out in the world as, things that we don't like are things that are intrinsically in ourselves. But if we think of it not in the absolute terms, but as far as like we wouldn't want to see that in ourselves, and we
right.
get,
And
something
that's a
to
hard
avoid.
lesson to learn too, that nobody is like me. That, like I can't believe that you think that way. Well, that's because you're different. You're not me. I wouldn't feel that way, but I can't say you can't feel that way. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I said that, explained that enough, but um, I have
Yeah.
to stop and think, well, I wouldn't do that, but I can't expect everybody to feel the same way that I do. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And the whole mirror thing, you know, they talk a lot about you see something in someone that you don't like, and you're mirroring it back to yourself.
Well, for me, that's true. And one of my therapists actually taught me to look at when I get upset with someone or when I say I don't like someone, and most people I do like, but there are certain people that get on my nerves. And she'll say to me, okay, what part of that person do you own? How, in even a remote way, are you a little bit like that person? For instance, I hate whiny patients. Why? Because when I'm sick, I'm the whiniest baby on the face of the earth. I own it. You know, it's a silly example, but it is true. And so that helped me understand my whiny patients and be able to tolerate them better. So that was a piece of me that I wasn't even aware of until I thought back to my childhood, because I was the one in the family that was always sick. I was always in the hospital with something, and I was always whining about something. Um, so again, when I look at the friends I've had in the past and why I've dumped them, it was because they were they were pieces of me that I dumped. So let's look at it from that perspective. Maybe that person you don't like is reflecting a piece of you that you've let go of. You got that lesson. You don't need to learn that anymore. So you let that person leave your life. And that's how it works for me. And again, I am also a person who doesn't learn her lessons easily. And particularly with men, I always made the wrong choices. My marriage was perfect proof of that. But everything I did after that was proof that I did not learn my lessons until I sat down and said, you are not going to find the right person to be a partner until you change who you are because you won't see him. And I almost didn't see Matthew because I changed a little bit, but hadn't completely changed. But, fortunately, I had a good guardian angel slap me upside the head and showed me what he was. But if I had not changed my attitude, my willingness to learn that lesson finally, I never would have met the perfect man for my life. And I am blessed. And I know lots of women who go through men and they choose the same man every single time. My choice was always an alcoholic. Duh. That surprised anybody? No. Um, but it was my lesson to learn from my family. It was a familial lesson because every woman in my family had chosen an alcoholic. And that's what I get out of that.
That's a great example. But you know what? If I slapped you on the side of the head, I'd get accused of abuse.
But the angel can get away with
that.
Some lessons you just have to keep learning, though. Like it's just that, all right, you picked up pieces of this lesson, but you didn't pick up all of it. So here you go again. Learn more.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
why I just
learn
posted
until
that
we
quote
die.
from the lessons in the chat. A lesson is repeated until it is learned. A lesson will be presented to you in various forms until you have learned it. That is like so true.
I agree with that. The thing though is that there's always lessons to learn. That's what life is about. Once you've learned a lesson, there's going to be another lesson and another lesson and another lesson. And that's how we live and grow. That's how we've been living and growing since we've even been born, right? You don't know something is hot until you touch the stove and you're like, oh, that's hot. Sometimes somebody can tell you it's hot and you're like, okay. And other times you have to learn for yourself because otherwise it's just words. And I used to be that hard-headed person. I am still sometimes. I don't like people to tell me what to do, but I recognize that I need that, right? I was rebellious. Nobody could tell me anything. And then I wish that I would have listened. But that's the thing. If something triggers you, that means that there's a lesson to be learned about that. There's something to go back to. So I agree with what you were saying. Like I've been triggered by many things and found out that's the shadow work that I need to do. There's something in my childhood, there's something in my past that needs to be learned. And when you find out what that is, that's part of the aura clearing that we do. You find out what it is. Everything that we do leaves a signature, an energy signature in your body. And that's why it triggers you. And when you're ready to release it, you release it. But then there's always something else. But then that's just part of life. And as we learn and grow, you learn what triggers you, you deal with it, you release it, and you move on to the next thing. So that's what I got out of that.
Well, here's a great example, maybe. uh, our caregiver is driving Bobby and I to a restaurant, and she does a good job of driving. But now she's turning into the wrong spot. So I mentioned that to her. She seems to ignore me. Then I holler at her, and her response was, "You drive." It was emotional gut reaction. I said, "Wow, you don't like to be told anything." And so much how true that is, right, for us, that we get sometimes into our emotional state of being. And it gets back to our primal need to run or flight or whatever. But I haven't read what I've entered this without going there, other than I have not had a chance to read anything about humanistic psychology. But we all know one of the first laydowns of humanistic psychology was the Ten Commandments. And the people at the time didn't want to give up their ways. And we're still doing it today. We still violate most of the things. And I think what you're talking about is noticing when we violate them or someone else violate them to learn from it. Is that the kind of the teaching today?
Well, I think there's many lessons in there. Like, we're definitely hitting some of the highlights. It's a really lovely piece. Um, Another piece that stood out to me is there are no mistakes, only lessons. Growth is a process of trial and error and experimentation. You can learn as much from failure as you can from success. So this is a little bit of a different, piece of this lesson that I think is really great to highlight and remember. There's a lot of people out there that put a lot of pressure on themselves to not fail, to not make mistakes. And I think the more that we can embrace the reality that mistakes are good, that we learn from them is good, the easier it gets to take those lessons, maybe. I don't know. That's just me.
Well, if you ever watch Bob Ross, the painter, he says he calls them happy mistakes. There are no mistakes. It's always something that you can make into something else. So if you look at life that way, if you get lemons, you make lemonade, the old adage. Um, and that works for me. And because I am a painter and I'm now painting Bob Ross way, I realized that every mistake I made in my painting, I could fix. And it would be better because I made that mistake. So can we look at life that way? That mistake had a purpose. It taught me a lesson. And if I learned it, I don't have to make that one again. But there's another one coming. And I know there is. And that's me. But yeah, this is one great big school we're in. I think we were sent here, all of us, to learn our lessons. And the only way to enlightenment is to learn your lessons.
A well-known psychiatrist said there's two ways to learn. One, from mistakes we make, and that's what we're talking about. And the other is from elucidation. And what does he mean by elucidation?
Are you going to tell us, Charlie?
No, I'm going to ask you what it is.
Enlightenment.
What's the meaning of elucidation?
To see the light.
Oh, Bobby just said it. She woke up from her slumber and she said, to see the light. Well, yes, to see the light. So elucidation means the answer is already
Enlightened.
enlightenment's already within us. So we're on a path of endeavoring to be more enlightened, like the Buddha. So we learn from elucidation, and when we have elucidation, then our whatever we do are simple acts of kindness, whatever, no matter what the situation is. But when we learn from our experiences or from our suffering, that's what you're talking about. And sometimes, like you say, it's repeated time and time and time again until we get it. Where elucidation, there may be ways to increase our elucidation, perhaps through meditation, through performing simple acts of kindness, by letting go of fear. Things like that seem to enable us to be more enlightened. That makes sense.
That brings to mind, and pardon, this is like going to be a little bit of a tangent. I'll come back, but I remember hearing about a scientific study where they took I think a Tibetan monk who um, experienced enlightenment. They meditated so much that they were just really calm and peaceful. And like when they did the scan of them, when they were in this really intense state of meditation, they saw an image. It was like looked like a blue flame or something in their mind, and that's like an image that had been held in some meditations before, the scientific scans were showing it. But the reason I'm bringing this up is that even a Tibetan monk who spends most of their time in prayer and contemplation and meditation isn't always at this place of enlightenment, and they can't maintain that all the time. So it goes back to we're always, you know, learning lessons, and we're not meant to be in a perfect state of not making mistakes all the time, or not, or being enlightened all the time. Even someone who is a master at meditation is not always at that place and has space to experience mistakes and wobbles in their life. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. And the question I would have, should we strive for that? I mean, if we want to improve, should we strive for something, or does it just happen naturally?
I think it's a little bit of both.
That's a good answer.
My Kabbalistic teachings that I recall would bring to mind the theory that nothing that we do starts with action. There's always this like spark of like an idea, and then it comes down into like planning what it is we're thinking about and then actually doing. And so everything's a process, right? That's what that tells me. And so whether it's, reaching for enlightenment or learning lessons from our quote unquote mistakes, it's just all a process.
I
And I
agree.
don't think we're meant to stay in that spot all the time of like not needing to learn lessons.
I
Well,
agree. That's what thoughts become words, become things.
Become
That's
action.
manifestation,
Yep.
right? Think it, say it,
Yep.
do it. You
Yep.
don't strive, I don't think, for perfection, but you have to do the action. We always strive for enlightenment, so we get it, right?
Yep. Mm.
If we knew everything, we would be stagnant. We would stay in one spot
Exactly.
and we would never move forwards.
Right. Very
Exactly.
true.
I always say, how boring would this world be if we knew everything that there is to know? The excitement comes in the journey, in the things that we learn
Exactly.
along the way.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
Lessons, lessons, and more lessons.
My understanding is that we're here to experience and live and choose and be,
Hmm.
and that
Yep.
the guides, the angels, whoever's out there are watching us as if we're a reality show for them. It's entertainment for them. And I
Hmm.
met somebody at a conference I just got back from who was a very well-known and well-revered professor, but he had such joy in his state of being that he would literally float through the room, and it didn't matter who liked him, didn't like him, spoke to him, didn't speak to him. He had the time of his life. And so he was a really good example of just being in your self love mode or whatever you want to call
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And that attracted people to him. And so people would
Right.
constantly congregate. And if you were in his presence, he treated you as though you were the only person in the room. And to me, that's a really beautiful state of being. Even though he was imperfect and a little weird, it was just very gracious
who,
to be in his entertainment.
Nikki,
Hmm.
who is this professor?
His name is Tom Frisk, and he comes from Germany. He's a professor of neuroscience, and he was presenting a paper or his research in the form of music as a learning vehicle and a way of healing yourself, music and healing. So the
Hmm.
auditory, it was really beautiful.
That is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So he was full of joy. He wasn't full of himself.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Good distinction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That reminds me of something Katrina said earlier about how the way you treat yourself gives other people cues on how to treat you, or the way that you choose to think of yourself. Like when you were talking about this professor, Nikki, you said he didn't care if people liked him or didn't like him. He was just in his joy.
Hmm. Acceptance of himself. That's something, that's a big statement, accepting of oneself. That's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And when I said like loving yourself and all that, I don't mean the people who you're like, oh my gosh, when they lay it on way too heavily and you're like, it's to the point of being narcissistic. Not that, but yes, loving and accepting yourself for who you are. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of you as long as you love you.
Right.
And
I've had
sometimes that's
people,
a
that's okay. I've had
no, go
people
ahead,
tell
Cindy.
me I'm crazy because I do too much for my clients and I shouldn't have to be outside doing their gardens. And they tell me that I'm just crazy, but I'm not crazy. And you know what I say to them? I will never stop being who I am. And these people are at the end of their lives, and this is what they did all of their lives. They tended to their gardens. So why is it wrong for me to continue that? You know? And so, yeah, you're right. And I say that all the time. I will never stop being who I am. And I don't charge people extra for doing stuff. It's like I have this thing in my head. I'm being paid an hourly rate and I'm here to work. So it doesn't matter. I shouldn't be just sitting in a chair the whole time. I don't think, anyway.
Good for you.
Plus, it's meaningful for them.
Yeah,
They're not
a
able
simple
to tend
thing.
their garden, but they know someone else cares about their garden. And
Right,
that gives them comfort.
right.
And when they see that garden that's being taken care of, it brings them joy.
It does. And I say to my naysayer friends that tell me I do too much, you know what? I have never, ever advertised. I have never given out business cards. My reputation has served me well in my community and with the people that I've cared for. And that's because I am who I am. And I won't change being who I am just because of other people's opinions.
Yeah. Well, no one tells me what to do until my family joins me. And then they,
Then everybody does, right?
yeah. You getting a puppy and you're almost 90? What's wrong with you?
I love it. There's no age limit to joy. Okay. There just isn't.
Exactly. Exactly. One of my teachers who went through the dark night of the soul came out and said, you love everybody for the way they are and the way they are not.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what we're kind of talking about when you talk about, uh, you could call it the dark side of us, or the things we're ashamed of, or ashamed somebody else does, and we make a big deal of it. That gets in the way of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I have found in my own life that a lot of the harder lessons were really culminated in a lack of love in the situation, which would be rooted first in self love. If I
Mm-hmm.
forego the self love, then I'm not bringing love into the equation in my relationships, whether professionally or personally. And I gleaned a lot of that from Marianne Williamson, who does mentions a lot of that shadow work in the Dark Night of the Soul, and says that a lot of problems that come into our life are really just not to oversimplify it, but to really, it's very truthful. The basic answer or the root cause is a lack of love being thrown into the situation, which is obviously very challenging with people who throw a lot of hatred or discord our way in one shape or form or another. So I think I know that when I've taken a step back during those moments of conflict and just said, where can I bring the love into the equation?
Mm-hmm.
I've had much better outcome with the lessons.
Right.
That came up in one of our classes, and what came up was, let me see if I can remember. It was on the tip of my tongue. Um, the opposite. What's the opposite of love?
Hate.
Fear.
Hate, yeah.
No, there is
It's
no
the
opposite.
yeah, it's
There
the
is no
absence of love.
opposite. Love has no
Absence of love. Right.
opposition. Hate is an incomplete expression of love.
Hmm.
I like that actually. I always think of like all emotions are either based in love or fear,
Mm-hmm.
if you really like boil them down. And fear is, fear the absence of, fear the presence of, like, there's something else there, but love is just complete in and of itself. Charlie, I really like how you say that.
Well, yeah, thank you. And then there was utter silence.
Uh-huh. There's another little piece of this, rules for being human that I want to read again. What you make of your life is up to you. You have all the tools and resources you need. Remember that through desire, goal setting, and unflagging effort, you can have anything you want. Persistence is the key to success. The answers lie within you. The solution to all of life's problems lie within your grasp. All you need to do is ask, look, listen, and trust. So that last line, ask, look, listen, and trust, it's, I think, talking about the process that we're all going through. And those are some key examples of what we need to do to reach out to our community, to our world outside of ourselves, and get the clues to whatever it is we're trying to tackle so we can reach those goals that we're talking about. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are into blame. It's somebody else's fault. Um, and I think the Eagles said it best. I'd like to take your inner child and slap its little face because you're blaming everybody for everything. And yes, your life has an effect on you, but you can make a decision to walk away from that.
Exactly.
I have walked away from my family twice because I will not tolerate their actions, their attitude. I have walked away from friends because I realized they weren't friends. So, again, growing up in an alcoholic family, you never understand that you have a choice.
Right.
When I started with counseling, somebody finally told me I had a choice, and I said, "Say what? You mean I don't have to do this?" No. Yeah, you have to take the consequences of that choice, and they weren't that bad. But we all have choices, and the choice you go with determines the direction you go in. And so, why blame God because I got cancer? I probably got cancer in my lungs because I smoked cigarettes for 10 years, you know? Um, yeah, and a lot of things just happen. A Rabbi Grolman wrote a book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And it was all about, we can't blame God. They just happen. And it's not like he causes it. He allows it because there's a lesson in that. And like my
Mhm.
friend Cheryl with her leukemia, she is cured of leukemia. She's also cured of a lot of her attitude. So her leukemia, even though it was horrible, was her blessing for the past year. That she didn't have to drink too much, eat too much, be nasty to people. That she could be the good, wonderful person she was inside, that she wasn't letting out because she didn't love herself. And in order to heal, she had to learn to love herself. She put herself first, probably for the first time in her life, but she did it. And I think that's what life's lessons are about. If you don't love you, and again, not in an egotistical way, you will never find someone else that you can accept love from.
Right.
Yeah, Jesus taught that so beautifully, so often. I want to get back to something that's humorous. A friend of mine that sings a lot of churches. He's a really cool dude. He got a good sense of humor. So he said, if thoughts were things, then I would have big breasts. I laughed too. He caught me off guard. And when I thought about that further from a psychological point of view, he's right. And that it's thoughts are okay, but it's what we give our attention to is either creating our problems or our solutions. What we give our attention to. So if a thought comes in our mind, we attend to it. It might be an inspirational thought and we write a book or whatever. Or it might be a thought that's not inspirational. We give a lot of attention to it. Before you know it, you're chasing breasts all around the country. Um, which I've done.
Shirley.
I hope your wife is asleep.
I'm sure she knows who she married.
I'm sure she does too.
It's never too late to change. I've recently found out I've become a tush man. I like tushes.
So, my comment on this is if we all live with love and kindness in our hearts and just be that example to the people and the lives that we touch in the community that we work with, I think that helps when you live like that. It helps you to not be so judgmental about just things, just so much. Because we do live in a very judgmental, opinionated world. And I think sometimes people just get it all complex, and it's just really simple. Live with love and kindness in your hearts. That's all. Isn't that how we want to be treated? Treat others how you would want to be treated. Yeah.
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 Be the example, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And all of what you just said, I think I love the part where you're like, you know, sometimes, well, you didn't say this, but sometimes, we don't know why other people are having whatever issues that they're having. But if we have that attitude that you're talking about, we cannot take it personally and just let it be their thing. And that helps us to accept them even more, I think, when we cannot take it
And to
personally.
not be so judgmental, for me anyway,
Mhm.
you know?
That was going to be my question to the group is the rules for being human. How does that translate for each of you in your ministry? Not just for us as ministers, but in ministering to your people. What does that look like? Cindy, you just gave a great example. That's along the lines of how my approach is how we show up in life. It has an impact and it does make a difference. It's just a lot of what we're reading here. A lot of people don't know, don't have access to this information. It doesn't come into their periphery. And so they operate in the opposite and a lot or the lack thereof of this knowledge. So how can we reach more people with these intrinsic, soulful tools?
Great question.
Very good question. Just by maybe being an example and sharing with other people thoughts and things like we're discussing right now, you know?
Having conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not, well, I'm going to use the word funny, but it's not humorous. It's funny, for lack of a better word. The amount of pushback in my own life where I'll utilize Facebook to try to send messages that mean I share my messages. So when I post something on Facebook, I'm really not posting it for others. It's so I can find it again. And it's for myself, but I figure if it has benefit for me, maybe it will with other people. And I'm surprised at some of the feedback that comes back at me as in the form of, oh, you just think you're better than everybody else, and you just think you're so high and mighty, and I'm just like, wow, that couldn't be further from the truth. But okay, yeah,
Block.
There's a
Oh, that's
lot of
terrible.
negativity out there.
there is.
Yeah.
But
And that negativity is those people trying to face their own things that they don't like inside themselves that they're either seeing or projecting onto someone else. So Caitlin, that when you post something, it's about you having that as like a focus for those thoughts and ideas, and you're putting it out there, and other people are projecting onto you what is stuff they don't like in themselves. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Caitlin, the good example is what Nikki gave us, that professor. He shared from his heart. And he wasn't upset because people disagreed with him.
Right.
Caitlin, in light of that, the people who are meant to get it besides you will get
We'll
it.
get it.
And the people who don't just
Exactly.
don't. But the Buddhist monks that I used to meditate with would always give me lessons. And one of them was here's this thought that to be in the spirit of receiving, you have to be in the spirit of giving, and vice versa.
Mhm.
It's just that
Right.
energy that you put out that comes back to you. And you'll
Mhm.
find that the more that you do that, the more you'll realize that you're gaining a little following of people that your words absolutely mean something to, and it touches them in a way
Mhm.
that they need at the time. So
Mhm.
that's that like attracts like sort of thing.
Mhm.
Right.
So they'll get
Yep.
it. So don't care about what those other people are saying. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably triggering them. That's the shadow work we talked about. But eventually they'll learn that they need to do something about it. And it has absolutely nothing to do with you. That's how I healed for so many things that triggered me. What's wrong with me? And so on and so forth.
Mm.
It's we have our own things, but people have their own crap. It has
Yeah.
absolutely nothing to do
Nothing
with
to
you.
do
So
with
don't
us.
take that on at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are people out there that just I don't know if envy is the word, but there are people that have a hard time being around positive people that are kind of light-minded. Like I put a lot of posts on my Facebook page, inspirational things, positive things, because I'm just feel like I want to be an example. Because if you turn on the news, it makes you just want to freak out.
Mhm.
So, all right, well, what can you do to be a difference? Oh, I know what I can do. I can just post nice, positive things, and so that's what I've been doing. And now I'm getting a lot of feedback, and it's not negative; it's positive, and people are saying we need to see more than this. So, yeah. And to the negative people, don't let them bothering you because I'm reminding you that you love yourself and you know who you are, and that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, I'm good, and thank you for the feedback. I actually am rooted in that understanding that it's not about me. And the reason that I'm subjected, Katrina, especially for you, because like attracts like. The reason I'm even subjected to that is because as a real estate agent, I do have a number of people who were not brought into my life through the metaphysical world or any of the personal stuff I do. It was business related, and they're oftentimes diametrically, politically, and everything else very different from me, but became my friend on Facebook or follow me. And so that's kind of how I got subjected to that. And I'm of the belief that unless somebody's so over the top negative and coming hateful, I will continue to allow them to follow me as long as they don't attack me personally, because I feel like um, we're all messengers, but we're not necessarily
Mhm.
messengers for everybody. But the
Exactly.
message that how I show up as a messenger is going to look different for some people. Some people I'm tilling the soil. Some people I'm planting a seed. Some people
Mm.
I'm watering the seed. And some
Mhm.
people I'm helping to prune so that they can grow, their plant. And so I think that, and obviously that's true for all of us, but I don't get to pick and choose how my being a messenger shows up for them, but they do.
Right.
So
Because we really never know where other people are at in their lives. We don't know what their personal circumstances are, financial situation. We don't know a whole lot about them. So, yeah, point well made.
Yeah,
Well,
that is really, really well said. And you talking earlier about all these people who say negative things. Yes, we don't know why. And I think beyond like us saying don't care about them and what they're thinking, like when we have the capacity to not take it personally, we can turn back to caring about
Mhm.
them and what's going on for them and why they're putting out what we're saying is negativity and, have compassion for we don't know where they are. Like, are they grumpy right now because they're in an abusive relationship? Are they grumpy right now because they don't have enough food to eat? Are they grumpy right now because they're depressed because of the state of the world? Like, you know, when we don't take it personally, it allows us to open up caring about why they're in the state that they're in. And I
Mhm.
love what you said,
Exactly.
Caitlin, also about being a messenger for wherever stage
Mhm.
they're at. You
mm,
you can add something.
Mhm.
Caitlin, here's another example within our own ministry. Our last president had a short term of office. Nobody would step up to presidency. He came into the presidency without having been in our ministry very long. And he or she It was hard to decide what kind of sex orientation he or she had, but she chased me out and belittled another male on our within our group so much that we both left the ministry. We
Oh
said,
my goodness.
we just left, and Dan never came back, and
Hmm.
I've invited him back. But since Paula's taken it over, it's changed its complexion back to where it was. So it
Amen.
can happen any place, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great discussion about these rules for being human that feel like some pretty good rules to remember, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and we're at the top of the hour. Any ideas about what we're doing next week? Do we have anything, Nikki, already lined up or?
I just put a tentative legacy interview on the calendar just to hold the spot, but we're open to anything. And are there any people that we would like to interview from our membership?
I wonder. No, I'm going to see if I can reach the author of this book that Franz sent me. It's written by a Dominican priest, and
Oh,
it's
Oh,
interesting. I'm only a little bit into it, uh, but he certainly teaches what we're talking about. He's like 80 years old when he wrote the book this year. So I'm going to see if I can reach him, maybe get him to talk to us.
Okay.
that would be interesting.
The name of the book is The Tears of Things by Richard Rohr.
Okay.
Who is the potential legacy interview with, Nikki?
We don't have anybody on the list at the moment. We've gone through everybody that we know.
except for
Maybe
What about
Sally.
our newly returning people like Olivia or what was his name, Danny, that came on a few times recently?
Then he
Yeah.
doesn't show up often, but we could ask him.
and
Um,
Nikki, could you get that professor to talk to us
Oh,
someday?
wow. I can ask.
Yeah, why not? Put it out there.
Are you
He's
open
on.
to that, Olivia?
Sure.
Okay. He does talk. I heard her voice.
yes, he
I
I
do
does.
have
talk here and there.
hesitancy, and it's not that scary, Olivia. If you were open to being interviewed, typically what a lot of people have done is whoever's going to interview you would have a conversation with you sometime during the week before the service and talk about possible questions. So that way
Okay.
you've already kind of thought through them, and it's really just about getting to know you. So
Mhm.
Okay.
does that help with your hesitancy?
Yes, I'm just not one to be front and center.
Well, come
Okay.
on, love yourself and join us.
That's right.
I'm trying. That is one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm learning to do.
Yeah. So we're going to help you get strong with that.
Okay.
Just an FYI, I will not be on next week. I will be in Florida enjoying the sunshine with my sisters, and I'm not even taking my computer. So you'll want to
Oh,
Nice.
good for you.
I
Good
hope
for
get
you
you,
ready.
don't
Paula.
burn too bad in the
Yeah, well, as
sun.
long as I stay away from the Bahama Mamas in the pool, I'll be okay.
Enjoy.
Saying
That's great.
Well,
yeah,
have fun.
I intend to. And we
Well,
haven't interviewed Sally either. Sally
Sally
D.
Ooh,
D.
She
yeah,
mentioned that to me last week, so we can look at that for the future because I would be happy to interview her since I've known her longer than anybody.
right.
Uh,
Great.
so I will
Okay.
discuss that with her in the pool this week as to when she wants to do that.
Okay.
But if somebody wants to pick on Olivia next week while I'm gone, that's fine.
Thanks, Paula.
You're welcome. What are friends for?
That's
Anybody
right.
who hasn't
I'm your
interviewed
teacher.
somebody interested in doing an interview of Olivia? Any takers on being the interviewer?
Like Olivia, not everybody's
Well,
or built to do so.
I know.
That's cool.
I was-
Just want to give the opportunity.
I'll volunteer if she calls me so we can get to know one another. I can.
Oh,
Oh,
There you go.
does that feel good, Olivia?
I can do that. Do you want to call or email?
I'd rather
Have a call
I'd
so
rather
you guys
call.
can have
Here,
some good discussions.
write down my number. It's 949-235-9586.
949-235-9586.
Correct, Charlie.
Perfect.
And if I don't answer, it's because I think you're a scammer.
My number has a lot of sevens.
Okay, you'll know.
Maybe text me first and tell me you're calling me. That'd be cool.
I can do that.
Great.
All right.
Fantastic.
All right.
Blessings
Thanks,
for a
B.
good week, everybody.
Have a
Have a
great
great
week.
week. Love
Have a
you
good
all.
week.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.